Hello, everybody. I'm Dahlia,
And I'm Allie.
and this is Navigate the Now.
Woohoo! Welcome. Happy Saturday. We're
Happy,
recording this on a Saturday.
yeah, happy Saturday, and
A-
welcome back, episode 2.
Episode 2. And we
Oh
just want to
my,
say thank you to anyone who's listened to the intro or trailer episode and the first episode and any feedback we've gotten because we love it. If you're wondering, should you reach out to us? You should.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So thank
That's
you
true.
for listening. So today we're going to talk about community, all right, and how important it is. We're going to get into just some research on community. We're going to get into even our thoughts and our experiences with community. So that's
Mm.
what's on the docket.
And why then is community important for what we're talking about in terms of navigating the now, right? Why would we be talking about community?
Well, a community is important to democracy and feeling like you can trust one another and being there for one another. So I
Hmm.
think that's just like
Yeah.
a place to start. We'll get
Yes.
into it. We'll get into it. As
Yes.
we mentioned in our first episode, we are going to be grounded in are rooted in our community agreements. And community agreements is what a group of people come together and agree on and how they're going to treat each other. And so it's just kind of what it
Hmm.
looks like to respect one another. So our
Yeah.
community agreements that Allie and I have agreed on are the following. So speaking in draft, I'll do the whole thing. I'll be like, number one, speaking in community agreement. Number one, speaking in draft does not have to be a polished thought. Number
Yep.
two, assume everyone is doing their best.
Yes.
Three, not here to be right, but to get it right.
Oh.
Four, be present, active listening. Five, be mindful of speaking space, just how much time we're taking up.
Hmm.
Six, this is a space to learn and grow. And seven, to have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a reminder, this is like I've mentioned before, it's a living agreement, right? A living document. So
Hmm.
we can change and add to it how we feel.
It kind of goes
Mhm.
back to number one, speaking in draft,
Yeah.
which is we can go back and edit our thoughts. It's not everything isn't a finalized statement
Hmm.
because there would be no space to learn and grow without that. So they all kind of repeat
Absolutely.
back with each other, but I think it's important. Yeah, I think number one exemplifies that thought.
Agreed.
So yeah.
Agreed.
Well, we wanted to check in with us a little bit and what we have going on. So, Dahlia, what's going on with you right now? Anything you want to share? How was your
Man,
week?
yeah, so I want to share. It was so interesting. I mean, we released our first episode. We went
Hmm.
live, and it was so fun recording. It was so much fun recording. I think I just have a good time with you, Allie,
Of
wherever we're at.
course.
But what I found really interesting, the day before, the evening before that we released, so I think it was like on a Thursday we released, I found
Okay.
myself in this like, I was so scared. It was like
Yeah.
a paralyzing experience.
Mm.
I, my breath was totally, I wasn't syncing up like my breath.
Disrupted.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I was
Yeah.
like, where is this like fear coming from? And it was just
Mm.
like, what are people gonna think? Am I qualified to talk about these things? What
Hmm.
is it? And then I got a hold of my breath and I said, okay, we're gonna do some deep breathing.
Hmm.
All right, get it together, Dahlia. And then I passed being paralyzed, and
Yeah.
I was still in that fear part, but I said, you know what? I'm going to, and it was all just based on like sharing something on my Instagram page. That
Hmm.
was it. Like it was, we didn't even have anything posted up on Spotify yet. It was just sharing of our new
Oh,
podcast, right?
this was like sharing it in general.
It was
Okay.
just
Yeah.
sharing it. It was just sharing it. And so
Oh.
I get
Mm.
through it and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And then it was like, what a lesson to learn, right? Like the
Right.
growth really does happen when you push through really uncomfortable things. And who knows how long we'll last on this podcast or where this will go, but I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us for doing it, for coming up with us that idea. I think it was probably like your idea, Ellie, of like, let's do this, and going through with it. So it's gonna
Yeah, I
be
was gonna
whatever
say,
happens is gonna be awesome.
I was thinking, yeah, that it's kind of goes back to community, which is what we're talking about, which is it's really nice to go through this with somebody else because when you're nervous, I'm probably on the other end, like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and post it for us, and like, so it's nice when you're not by yourself, you have that support of somebody else to talk
Right.
it through. And like I said, when we do this together, and so it
Hmm.
just feels better doing it with somebody, knowing that you're going to go through it together. It feels much more doable. And what I keep telling myself whenever I feel that hesitancy is that I'm suffering. What do they call it? Imposter syndrome, right? Like, and a lot of women do. A lot of us women suffer from imposter syndrome, and when it gets down to like the nitty-gritty for us to do this, we don't think that we should. It's just like when men apply for jobs, they tend to apply for jobs that are beyond their qualifications, and women are the opposite. So we want to be more than overqualified for everything that we're doing. So
Hmm.
I try to remind myself of that. It doesn't mean it works every time, but it just gives me
Yeah,
that
and this
that
is a
thought.
first for us. Right.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
first. And what also has been really helpful is us doing it together, but the love and support that we've had from our friends, right? It's like obviously the people that are
Yes.
listening to our podcast is our
Yes.
friends, and
Yeah.
it's super appreciative for those who've taken the time to listen to it.
Mhm.
And let me plug this in: like and subscribe and follow us for updates.
Yeah, on Spotify.
Hmm.
And turn on notifications. There's a little bell.
Yeah,
And
touch the
you'll get a
bell.
notification
Touch
every
the
time.
bell.
So that's what my partner Ben, my husband, that's what he tells me is make sure you tell everyone to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
E
Uh
Exactly. And
yeah.
I just wanna say that I hopefully this episode, I'm sounding extra clear because I
Oh
got
yeah.
a new laptop and my microphone attached,
Yes.
so
You're
I'm serious.
unstoppable.
Yeah, I'm unstoppable.
You're
This girl is on
unstoppable.
fire.
Fire.
What's up with you, Allie?
Woo!
What's going on?
Woo! I had something specific I wanted to share, which was about so on Sunday so about a week ago, I hired an animal communicator, which I had
Love
booked
it.
her probably I don't know a couple
Oh,
months ago,
wow. Like, she's
and
back.
at least yeah, in February she's in I think she was in New Jersey, um, and I just reached out and I saw that she had space or availability a while ago, but yeah, it was far out in advance. And I have 4 pets. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats.
Mhm.
But Billy's kind of my little soul dog, and so I really wanted to know what I I wanted to know what was going on with her. And I still whenever I've done a few other things like this before, I've like gone and seen somebody in Casadega in Florida a couple times. And so I always keep an open mind. It's like if you were to ask me like, do you buy into all of, everything? And I'd be like, well, I don't know, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Mhm.
Um, but I loved the reading. It was a lot of fun. And Ben and I sat and talked to this woman on speakerphone. And it was really interesting because probably 30 minutes before the call, I was sitting on the bed and it was 6:30, and you have to think the dogs eat at like 5.
Mhm.
So my dog's just 8. Billy is just 8, my dog. And so she's good, but she was being really crazy to the point that I almost thought she hadn't had dinner yet, and it was like that
Mhm.
far past her dinner.
Mhm.
Anyway, she told me that she kind of starts communicating with him, I guess, up to
Wow.
30 minutes before, and
Okay.
she was just being super crazy the whole time leading up, and then the entire reading. She's not really like a toy dog, she doesn't
Uh-huh.
like toys. My other dog Coco is, and she was just flying around whipping toys in the air and being silly, but staying in the room with us.
Yeah.
And it was really sweet. But my aha moment, or my moment of buy-in, I guess, was she said she sounded kind of confused. This is the one, not Billy, the woman. Her name was
Oh, the
Daniela,
woman?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
not Billy, but the woman
Really was.
Daniela.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said, "Do you have like a goat or something?" And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Oh,
my sister has a goat and she's next door and between us, this goat, she lives at the barn. Her name's Starlight." And I'm
cute.
like, "Yeah, I do have a goat actually." And she said, "Oh yeah, she loves the goat. Like she loves the goat."
Like in
So,
love with the goat?
yeah, or she just like she likes other animals.
Okay.
She's
Oh, that's
curious
so
about other
sweet.
animals. Yeah. And she
Oh.
likes babies. She likes babies of all kinds, like baby humans, but also
Uh-huh.
baby animals, and she wants to like care for things. She likes a job. So,
Mhm.
anyways, if you've seen pictures of her when I post her maybe on my Instagram or something, it's always her with kittens and she loves the kittens. So,
That's so sweet. That's
anyways,
fun. That's so fun.
yeah. Yeah, it was really sweet. It was really thoughtful. Um she kind of called me out.
Oh, damn. What'd she say?
Oh, this is what yeah, this is what made me think, "Oh yeah, these are some interesting bits from my dog." So I mentioned that I recently moved to Ohio, and she said, you know, have if you've moved recently, she kind of thinks that, you know, I moved from Tampa where you and I met.
Mhm.
Even though I'm from here, I've been gone a long time. But anyway, she said she feels like Billy, my dog, she feels like you maybe are having kind of not a hard time with the move, but you know, it weighs on you some. And that your husband, he takes it better. And I was like, well, that's true, because he could be anywhere. He doesn't care. Um, so that was kind of, I was like, man, my dog is like picking up on my very subtle, you know, mood about something or
Right.
thoughts about something. And she's like, yeah, she knows that you definitely miss it there and that you sometimes have a hard time with it. And I was like, wow. And then the other thing is she asked me about art supplies, and she said she's showing me art supplies. She said she communicates with her in pictures or sensation. And she
Hmm.
said she's showing me art supplies, and then it came out. She says you used to do art and you're not doing it right now. And I used to be really into pottery, and I did some other stuff. She said you're not doing it right now. She said, and
Hmm.
she doesn't think she doesn't think it's grumpy, but she thinks you're happier when you're doing art.
Oh,
So
is it true? You gotta start doing art, Allie.
I know, but I felt kind of like really called out by my dog.
You're like, this reading isn't about me. It's about you, Billy. Yeah. Oh
Anyways,
man.
yeah, that
I
was
feel like
interesting.
I feel like that's what pets are so intuitive. They
Mhm.
feel you. They I believe it. I believe it. I have two cats. I actually I don't think I shared this with
Yes.
anybody, but
Yes.
I did the same thing last year.
Yes.
Last year,
I love it. I love it. We didn't know this. We didn't know this. I just mentioned this before we started, and you were like, "Me too." So
me too.
this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So please
Yeah.
share.
Yo, Instagram made me do it though. I swear to you, I can't. I'm as easily influenced. Anyway, so my partner and I, we have two cats. The one cat is Pumpkin, and she's a daddy's girl, and we have Will Ferrell, and he's a mama's boy. And so we
Will and
found,
Pumpkin.
yeah, Will and Pumpkin, and so Pumpkin's 13 years old. Will is, I think, 3. We found him like 2 years ago in the basement of our
Mhm.
apartment. But anyways, I thought was like that'd be I want to make sure that Pumpkin's feeling okay with this, being a big sister because she's always been a single child. So
Right.
I
Right.
I think it was about an hour long. Yours sounds a lot more interesting than mine. Mine I felt was like it was what did I get? I got that Pumpkin's okay. And Will is learning his place in this household. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
we're doing something right.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
that was that was it was fun. It was fun to do.
It was good.
Yeah.
Th- this is the most millennial shit ever.
So what? Let me talk to my pet. Damn it.
We
Will,
are
where are
we
you,
are
Will?
we are Dink epitome. Dink, like, right? You remember, you know, Dink,
No.
dual income, no kids.
Oh, this is what we're spending. Oh god, this is what we're spending our money on. Yeah,
We're
living my
both
best life.
Dinks.
I don't know about you all.
We're both
Um,
Dinks. Yeah. And that's the joke is that as a pet, you want to have dink parents and you
Yeah,
want like millennial dink parents because they're just going to be like ridiculous
they're gonna
as we are.
give you so much love and affection.
That's right.
But I kind of feel like I did manifest Will though, because I was like, I want a cat of my own, but I don't. But I just want it to come to me, and I wanted to be the
Mm-hmm.
friendly cat. And Will's super friendly, and he's super
Mm-hmm.
loving.
Aw.
He like they're definitely two opposites. Like the doorbell will ring, and Will will run to the door, and then Pumpkin be like, I'm out of here. I don't know. I'm gonna go
Mm-hmm.
hide under the bed.
Is Pumpkin a girl? Is that what you said? Is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
you
Pumpkin's a girl.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
She's a
Yeah.
sweetie, a cutie
Cat
patootie. Oh, you
Female
know what I
cats are a
did?
lot more pesky. You what?
Yeah. Yeah, they set their boundaries, okay? If you don't like a person that
Mm-hmm.
sets their boundaries, then that's something on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cats set their boundaries. I did
Cats,
the
yep.
I jumped on the bandwagon of asking ChatGPT to make if my
Oh,
cat was a human. I gotta
okay.
send you the photos. It's hilarious.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yes, you do. I hope that you saw we have a mutual friend we've had for a long time, Robert, aka Snobbert, and he he had 4 cats, and I think one's just passed recently. Anyways, he did it. I think he saw him share it to Facebook, and it's all 3 of his cats, like, if they were humans in a family photo on the beach. And he and, and he made it like his like on Facebook, not his profile picture, but the like I don't know, that like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
cover
yeah, yeah,
photo. Yeah, it's so
that's
silly. And
hilarious.
yeah, yeah.
That's fun.
Mhm.
Well, I guess we both had
Yeah.
some weeks. We both had good weeks, m
Mhm.
more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing
Yeah.
okay. We're hanging in there. We
Hanging in there.
we hope you're hanging in there too. My grandpa used to say, "How when you said, 'How are you doing?' He'd say, 'I'm here.'" All
Well, I
right.
know.
So, Dahlia,
Yeah.
you're kind of this is definitely Dahlia's brought this topic to the table, and I feel like this was kind of the inspiration for why you wanted to do this podcast, or like where not why, but maybe where you wanted to go, or like the type of direction
Yeah, I
the
really
vision your vision.
yeah, the vision, in case it wasn't clear, and it could be not clear at this point because we're
Mhm.
forming ideas as we go, right? The whole keep
Yeah.
going back to the speaking and draft.
Yeah.
At some point, we have polished thought, but not yet. But anyways, the idea is to help people navigate through these times, through this administration, when people's rights are being torn from them,
Mhm.
when people just feel like there's more division than there is things in common with folks. And so
Yeah. Unity.
I felt it imperative to start with talking about community, right?
Mhm.
We keep talking about this idea of toolbox, right? The tools that we have in our toolbox to help us get through this time, anytime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was, I am somebody who I seek community wherever I go.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, you do.
yeah, I am I'm a true, and I'm a believer. I see it, I feel it of
Mhm.
wherever you're at, having a community is going to be really important to just like your
Yes.
survival, right?
Yeah.
So I was listening. I was just recently introduced to Dr. Robert Putnam. Have you heard of him
Mhm.
before?
I had not until you sent me that.
Okay, so Dr. Robert Putnam, he's a political scientist,
Mhm.
author of Bowling Alone, and
Okay.
his whole thing is he speaks about, this was actually back, duh, it was in the 90s that the essay was released, but it was
Mhm.
over a 20-year research that he did in
Okay.
Italy. So the basic basis of his work is social groups and people being included in groups is declining and social isolation is increasing. So
Mhm.
what is social isolation? People who are just kind of keeping to themselves, their group is very
Mhm.
small. They're not, and essentially they're not really socially engaged in their community. So therefore, like not engaged in in civic duties either.
I think when we think of social isolation, we think like somebody who doesn't talk to anybody. And that may be the case, but I also think it's people who only have required interaction. So maybe like your
Required interaction.
yeah,
What do you mean by
yeah,
required
like
interaction?
maintenance interactions or I don't know how to call them, but you're gonna probably talk to family. But it's the question then is how much are you talking to people you don't have to talk to,
Right.
if that makes
Right.
sense. I
Mhm.
don't know.
No, no.
'Cause
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think of social isolation and just think of people holing up in their house and almost like a hermit. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think it could be more than that.
No, I think that that's a really good explanation.
Oh,
Thanks for adding that in. And so we're talking research here, y'all. Like this is not feels good. I mean, it does feel good to be in community, but we're talking about there's research that's been done, and we're specifically right now speaking about Dr. Robert Putnam's research, and his team studied the performance of regional governments in Italy over a 20-year period, starting in the
okay,
1970s. And
okay.
essentially, what he had is that he was in Italy and he had this really unique opportunity to where the government changed where each region, right,
Mm-hmm.
different regions in Italy had the same type of government,
Okay.
but obviously different people live in these different regions. And so his work
Mm-hmm.
was to assess how well were was the where the government's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So ask questions like, do you trust the government? How are you, what your satisfaction with your lifestyle, and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
in his research, once again, this is over a 20-year span, he gathered evidence, and even with the with the same plan, right, with the same government plan, this X, Y, and Z's implemented in all parts and in different regions, the governments that really flourished the most were the ones where
Mm-hmm.
people were really active in social clubs. And then when they're active in
Mm-hmm.
social clubs, they're going out, they're engaging into their local community. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very much a we situation versus an I situation.
Yes.
Um, he, Dr. Putnam, he has a documentary out. Well,
Oh, okay.
a documentary about him, and it's called Join or Die. So I highly recommend that. It's on Netflix to watch.
Ooh,
And
okay. We'll link it.
yeah, we'll link below. And in there, he talks about how it was John F. Kennedy's inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there with his, at the time, girlfriend. And it
Mm-hmm.
really spoke to him when John F. Kennedy said, not ask, oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. It was, don't ask what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Right. Right.
And he was like being there, hearing that, he felt it was a direct ask from him.
Yeah.
Um, and once again, kind of tying it back to it is a we versus it's an I.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes back, he gives this essay. People are really interested in it. Some people actually want to debunk it. They're like, well, we're not even in the same, it's the new times. People are interested in different things. And so
Okay.
he goes on this further research. One, he's questioning himself and questioning the research that he's done. And so
Yeah.
he ends up here in the States. I think it's over a 5-year period where he uses different research from different
Okay.
marketing companies, people who've done
Marketing
research
firms. Yeah.
firms, right? Like an example that gave in the documentary, it was if they're trying to sell napkins, they're going to be like, okay, well, let's see how often people are having home parties, right? And so
Okay.
they're
Okay.
gathering this information and then either gathering information about napkins, gathering information about how many people are going like on picnics or all X, Y, and Z, right?
Right. Right. It's just social gathering data.
Yeah, social gather. Yeah, exactly. And so what he then also finds in his research is that that's also a decline since the 1960s. Um,
Mm. Okay.
and so people are not getting together as much. Social clubs, being part of the Rotary Club, I don't know, enter the type of club that maybe your grandpa,
Yeah.
grandma, maybe or may not were a part of. Social clubs too,
Yeah. Yeah.
PTAs, being involved in schools, and that has declined.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
and
didn't he specifically talk about bowling clubs?
Yeah, so the reason why the whole bowling clubs came about is that bowling has sustained its popularity, but
Mm-hmm.
now more people are bowling alone than they are doing leagues.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole name came from, was just
Okay.
like bowling alone. So,
Okay.
yeah, and his whole thing is social capital. So, what is social capital? It's networks of relationships among people who work and
Mm-hmm.
live in a particular society together, and it enables for their society to function efficiently.
Right.
Right. So it's not just your core family, your nuclear family, but it's your neighbor. It's
Mm-hmm.
everybody who lives in like a vicinity around you. Um,
Right.
and so his thing is social capital, right? That's what we
Yeah.
need in order
Right.
to have a working democracy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was really, like I said, I also want to pitch Trevor Noah. Dr. Putnam was on Trevor Noah's What Now a podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
it was helpful for me to listen to that because as I mentioned before, was- right now where I'm at, and obviously people are going to be in different places with just dealing with what's happening in our country.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
very much in a place where it's like I want to truly understand the why, I'm a connector. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
I want to connect to people, and I
Yeah.
do understand where people are like, well, I don't need to have sit down and have a conversation and try to convince somebody that the genocide that's happening in Palestine. Like I don't want to convince people of that. And that's a fruitless conversation and and I'm not what I'm trying to say is and where I'm at is starting right now at the basics,
Mm-hmm.
understanding history, understanding what
Mm-hmm.
makes a democracy because honestly until that particular conversation I've always connected community with a feel good that feel good
Yeah.
feeling of being a part of something but
Mm-hmm.
it's but then hearing it in terms of not only is it a feel good to be in community but that's powerful,
Yeah.
right, to
Yeah.
have others that even come from different backgrounds to come together and doing something that they love. In the documentary, though, they talk about like a cycling group. So this particular
Mm-hmm.
cycling group, I came out from the need of it was actually based in Atlanta, and I apologize, I can't
Okay.
remember like the name, but there's like we don't see a lot of African Americans cycling. And so this
Yeah.
group, it was like, it doesn't matter, if African American, you're black, come on, we're gonna ride this bike together. And so it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily about politics or policies where people believed, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just around the idea of getting together. And then when you are in spaces, right,
Mm-hmm.
that you are have that one thing in common, because I do believe that for the most part, you can find something in common, right, with somebody.
Yes. Yes.
It's going to humanize relationships and then be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, when X, Y, and Z policy is put in place, all right, when it's
Mm-hmm.
put in place and it's impacting me, but it's not impacting somebody else. But if I'm talking to that somebody else that it doesn't impact and let them know how it impacts me, then they're going to
Yep.
be more willing
Well,
to do it.
yeah, you've humanized the issue for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's community sounds like a feel good thing, but it's really at its root a form of survival.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're kind of witnessing is almost this people trying to claw out of the lack of community
Mm-hmm.
in different ways, and that's kind of some of the reason as to why we're here is because with this lack of connection you have dehumanization.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's the only reason, but like you said, when do we get together? And then you think of the decline of church too.
Yeah, exactly.
um
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like, when do people from different backgrounds get together now and talk and have to, and I don't mean, because we could say, and this was where I was going to bring in my piece
Mm-hmm.
of kind of, or my contribution today was thinking of how we show up and kind of, and thinking of different ways. How do I say it? I was kind of thinking, how do I implement this myself?
Mm-hmm.
um But what I was going to say is showing up just isn't, I don't mean going to a bar and there's people there because, and that was my first bullet point that I wrote for myself is showing up in spaces where monetary exchange isn't expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's my question of like when do people show up from different backgrounds and interact on this mutual need of each other and reliance on each other beyond this transactional type of relationship. So because sometimes we can show up in like, like I said, a restaurant, a bar, maybe you go to trivia night and there's people, I'm not, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when we show up and we're there for a cause or for a reason and we have to interact and get by together. And I think
Yeah.
that is where that creates a much more meaningful web of understanding.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Um,
agree. I mean, you can definitely meet
yeah.
friends like in these different places, but
Yeah.
it's like when you're part of a social group,
Mhm.
it brings you there's certain fundamental
Yeah.
ideas that are bringing you there.
Yeah.
One of the most recent groups that I am proudly to say I'm a part of is a mutual aid group.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and the mutual aid group that I'm a part of is called Sunnyside Woodside Mutual Aid, and they've been around since the pandemic. So they started out of the need
Mhm.
of either, a lot of people were laid off because of the shutdown of the whole entire
Yeah.
world, and
Yeah.
so they came together as a neighborhood to bring groceries to the most vulnerable.
Mhm.
And to
Mhm.
Yeah, so it started off with that, right? And so I myself didn't know what the heck a mutual aid group was until just super recently.
Yeah.
And from my basic understanding, the idea is mutual aid is there to help one another. It's not
Mhm.
charity, it's solidarity. And so that's like one of the, I know one of the phrases that I see a lot in the different
Yeah.
flyers and stuff. And
Like a
so
slogan.
yeah, exactly. And so we're
Mhm.
there knowing that the government's not going to be there for us. We can't depend on, um, I don't know,
Yeah.
not, yeah, government, right? We depend on
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
it's
we
creating a
come
network.
together. It's creating a network. It's creating a
Yeah.
network. And so
Yeah.
that's been helpful for me to be a part of that, to kind of you have to start locally. I
Yeah.
think, in these times, when you want to do something and you feel like
Mhm.
there's so much to do, like where to start, you start locally. You
Mhm.
start with helping out your neighbor. You start with learning your
Yeah.
neighbor's name.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Even if you think they voted for somebody else.
yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Or even if you think they really don't align with you in a certain way. I was gonna bring up. I know you're mentioning your mutual aid, but I also know that you have start. I know you have your own club that you've told me you've started.
Oh my God.
Uh, it's your walking club. I
Yeah,
love it. I love it.
yeah, yeah. It's been on a pause, but we're probably gonna be coming back. Okay.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
it, dwi-
Okay.
it dwindled down to one other person, and then my good friend ended up moving to Colorado. So, but
Oh,
anybody in Sunnyside that wants to meet up for
yeah.
a 6:30 a.m. walk, hit up your
Yeah.
girl.
Life is an
Well,
ebb and flow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
And that's how I guess for me, that's I've tried to now that I've moved, I have more time. And so that's kind of where I've tried to throw myself into different causes. So that's where showing up for me has been a lot. I've worked with a cat rescue. I've been showing up some ways at my where I teach and just kind of trying to throw myself into an acts of service basically and finding my
right.
community that way. That's kind of been my method.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it makes you really think about, and I know we've talked about this, you're not always going to be in community with people you agree with, and you have to get over that. It's, and that's my piece I was going to bring today was kind of thinking about how really doing reflection on how we show up individually, not just in a bowling club or a walking club, but
Mm-hmm.
also how do we show up for our friends and family? Because when we talk about community, and I think right now community is going to become this big buzzword a bit. I've
I think
noticed,
it
I
already
feel like
has.
I,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're buzzing.
Um, yeah. We're buzzing. It's very, it's very trending right now. And so often everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon but then it's like, okay, so what does that really mean? And so
Mhm.
for me, I've really tried to digest that word and and think about it in my own terms of, okay, well, in the way that we function in society, especially here in the United States, Western
Mhm.
culture as well, but really here in the United States, we are so hyper individualistic.
Mhm.
And it's evident when you leave, and I thought you were talking about Italy, and I thought, yeah, that's a place where there's town squares and where people walk around. So when you even think of architecture and the way that we've designed our lives, I know you're in New York City, but let's say even where we lived in Tampa, that was a very car dependent city, and
Mhm.
it's not built. A lot of our cities and our just the way that we've set up society is not a structure in which people can really easily meet up. And so that's one side, but just kind of one facet that I think the way that it's kind of creeped in. But then I just think about how, for me, how we show up for friends and family.
Mhm.
Because the third space is important and the clubs are important, but it's like, so I go to a club, but I'm a shit friend. Maybe I need to do some reflection there, right? So,
Right. Reflect.
I've yeah,
Mhm.
and so I've been thinking of devoting myself to community and acts of service has kind of been one way, but then I've been trying to show up for friends or family in a thoughtful manner, and also like knowing reciprocity is important, but it's not. I think a lot of the times, I think a lot of times we try to keep score. Oh, I've done this for this person, and then
Mhm.
and it's like maybe we don't
Conditional.
we need to maybe we need to
Mhm.
let that go. And that doesn't I'm not saying that you should not put up boundaries and let people walk all over you. That's not what I'm saying. But it's learning how our culture has taught me to analyzing, yeah, how my culture has taught me to move and behave in my own spaces with my family, and how to show up, and then apply, and then thinking about, which I want to talk about eventually as well, radical inclusion. And so for me, I'm with my family. I'm pretty close with my family, but I've been thinking about friendships, and so I think a lot about radical inclusiveness and friends because I've been
So,
in
Allie,
multiple. Yeah.
w what is radical inclusion?
Well, I feel like there's social radical inclusion and then there's political radical inclusion. And I'm reading a book on radical inclusion right now by David Moinina Senge. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's about so far what I've read is basically when you show up politically to try to have these discussions, you're going to have to show up in places where it's hostile, people don't agree with you, but basically you have to show up and work with these people.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of his angle right now. But for me, I think of radical inclusion as far as in my own life, really trying to dismantle the way I've moved socially and relationships and with people. And something I've talked about a lot is, I think in the past, and maybe this is just a part of growth, but it's not having to have friends who serve, I think you and I talked about this earlier, who serve my identity or who I think I need to have in my life, but just who comes to my life and is there and is a thoughtful person, and whether it's being open to being friends with people of a totally different age, right? And
Mhm.
I'm sure some of that comes with just being older. um but there was somebody whose work I shared with you this week. I had her saved, and her name is Christabel Minta Galloway on Instagram, and she is a writer, storyteller, and way shower. And we'll link her in the bio as well. I've really been enjoying her work, but she talks about the idea of how often we have these really separate friend groups,
Mm, mhm.
and how you have your work friends and you have your workout friends and your
Mhm.
spiritual friends and your these friends, and
Right.
how we can tend to work really hard to keep them separate. And I've definitely it's interesting. It's also interesting because sometimes I realize, okay, well, I don't like to keep my friends separate. um
Mhm.
but maybe people do, and that's something I've had a hard time understanding. But just being cognizant of those things, and why do we keep people separate? Because often we're worried that they might not get along, and then
Right.
that's going to be harm to our relationship. But the more that, like you said, the more that we open ourselves up to other people, it is literally also about survival and feeling good.
Mhm.
But I think the more that we're open to sharing and connecting with people, I don't anticipate that people are going to go out tomorrow and start having connecting all their friends. But I
Yeah.
I hope that we think about that. I hope that
Uh,
you question why you hesitate or why we hesitate sometimes to congregate people in certain ways and
yeah,
how we
for
try to
sure.
often control social situations
Yeah,
maybe.
like it's like we want to manage people's reactions or feelings or stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust that like you're hanging and that's if you're hanging out with the right people, it'll work, right?
Mm,
Like
facts. Yeah.
or if it doesn't, they will hopefully have the maturity and understanding like that's okay, that's not my person, but that doesn't mean that you and I are that you're not my person.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of the bridging and bonding connection concept that
Mm.
Dr. Putnam speaks about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bridging, that's when you find one or two things in common with somebody that maybe is not really in your circle, in your group, right? The people that you would normally hang with. I know
Mhm.
like a good example that I have, a personal example. When I first moved to New York City, I started going to a salsa class. So a salsa studio.
Oh
Shout out to
yeah.
yeah. You went with me.
I
Remember that when you
did.
came like 3 years ago?
We did a
It
little
was
bachata.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I did that for, it was really great way to find community. And
Mhm.
this studio does a great job of being super inclusive and friendly. And they bring in such a diverse group of folks. So we
Mhm.
were what we had in common learning salsa, right? And then we would
Right.
go out to our socials or hang out, and I was able to get to know these people.
Mhm.
And that was, I think that's a really good example of bridging. We can find different things that we have in common, or even just learn from one another, right?
Mhm.
Learning from people that wouldn't necessarily be in our
Mhm.
groups. And then
Yeah.
you have bonding. Bonding are your close friends, your close family members, the people that you would reach out to if you're sick, if you need
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And then I want to share an example of when bridging goes to bonding, because that happens, right?
Yeah.
Uh, two years
Ooh.
ago,
Ooh.
ooh,
Okay. It's getting
getting personal.
yeah.
Well, 2 years ago, I joined a CrossFit gym, Sunnyside CrossFit.
Mhm.
Shout out to them. Just trying
Mhm.
to get swole, trying to get healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what was connecting everybody there? Moving together, right? We're working out.
Yeah.
And I just found a great group of people that I bonded. We had that bridging because we were working out together and then really
Mhm.
bonded. We take our friendship outside of the gym. We've gone hiking together. We've definitely been there for one another through
Mhm.
difficult times. And this particular group too is pretty diverse. This is actually
Nice.
in this friend group. I would like to share diverse and just like culturally and also religiously.
Yeah. Did I meet
Um,
some of these people at New Year's?
yes, you
That's what I
did.
thought. Okay.
hmm
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah.
So you met them, and then actually, and then this one particular story that I like to tell
Mhm.
is that in this friend group we have somebody who's Jehovah Witness, and so
Mhm.
I personally have never had a friend who's Jehovah Witness, or maybe I
Mm.
have and we haven't really talked about it, but it's a first time to where I connect with somebody and I am learning from them, and they also learning from everybody,
Mhm.
right? Like we're all kind of learning
Mhm.
from one another. So that's where that bonding and bridging kind of come together, and where the change really happens, where you kind of really
Yeah.
test your biases that you have, right? Whatever
Mhm.
thoughts that you may have about a particular group, when you're in community with them, whatever ideas, you end up just you humanize the friendship, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have
Yeah.
the biases. I
Mhm.
guess. I guess you
Mhm.
you can say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
More or less. So to tie it into bonding and bridging and community and all that stuff and tying it back to politics, just to paraphrase a line from the documentary that I mentioned earlier, Join or Die. um,
Mhm.
it says most political scientists think of politics as being a function of the effectiveness of our political constitutions, right? So
Yeah.
how effective Congress, Supreme Court, the presidency, how effective they
Mhm.
are. But Dr. Putnam would say that it's not so much that effectiveness of
Mm-hmm.
of Congress, Supreme Court, presidency. It's really about the ways in which people are connected to each other that's going to either make or break democracy, right? If it's going to
Mm-hmm.
do what it should be doing for its people.
Yeah.
So connectivity is key. Bridging
Key.
is what is needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. Um, and I think that I think another part of, what are we root? We are navigate the now, root, rise, reflect.
Rise, reflect.
And reflect and educate, and I think that the bridging is necessary, because in that isolation, that is how the more isolated people are, the more easy it is for them to, I don't want to say develop hatred, but I'm going to say develop
Yeah.
hatred.
Well, it's easy to other, right? And so one of the things that they also speak about is that in this isolation, in this social isolation, it's like the populist appeals. It's
Right.
ideas that are not rooted in facts start to flourish. So the idea
Yeah.
that immigrants are bad and that they're all bad hombres and they're going around, you know,
Yeah.
fucking doing crazy ass shit, and that's the reason
Yeah.
why the United States is going down the drain is because of the immigrants. It's
Right.
easy when people are socially isolated, and then all of a sudden, then you get the uh, Mr. Cheeto guy creating. He created a
Wait,
community.
wait, 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 wait. I'm gonna cut in one of our community agreements that we forgot. I forgot that we said this
What?
last time, but I said that we will not. He who shall not be named, they who shall not be named. We are not saying that person's name on this podcast.
What is Cheeto? Can we say
Yeah,
Cheeto?
Cheeto Man's fine.
Cheeto. Um. So
Uh,
this is,
yeah,
once tying it back to part,
it's
it's part
it's
of a reason. Like, Cheeto Man is
yeah,
not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. And you may or
yeah.
may not heard that several of times, but the people stopped joining clubs starting back in the 1960s. So it's like it's
Uh,
been in development. I don't know. Some people would say that was
yeah,
purposely done too, to isolate folks, because it's easier. It is easier to control when people are dehumanized.
yeah,
When you're not in community with somebody who's trans. I mean,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
definitely seen that, where it's like,
yeah.
I don't understand the pronouns. And I mean, not gonna lie though, like it took me a while to fully,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
it took me a while to fully embrace the pronouns and to understand it, because obviously I'm coming from a place where I'm a cis woman, and I've always
hmm,
identified
yeah.
with my sex, with my gender, with what I look like.
Right,
So it's a privilege.
right.
And then learning, and I mean, I didn't meet the first person that I met that was trans. I was in my early 30s when I moved to New York City.
Mm, okay. Yeah.
So, you know, being in the same spaces, being friends with somebody who was trans, and then having conversations, and it it humanized them, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand why you want to be identified as how you view yourself, and not have
Yeah.
somebody else dictate what that is,
Yeah.
right?
I'm gonna cut in probably the first person that you knew as trans.
Yeah,
Because so
sure, yeah,
often
yeah,
I don't think it's, I don't think it's often an identifiable thing, and I don't think people know that. So that's why I want to say that
yeah.
you
No,
you
yeah. Thank you for
probably
saying that. You're
regularly
absolutely right.
interact with trans people, not just you, anybody,
Yeah.
and you might not know it, and
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think
Speaking
people realize
truth.
that.
Yeah.
I have that was another little tidbit I had in preparation for today. I was going back through and reading Bell Hooks has a book on community and education.
Mm.
And I was just going back through some of the different chapters, and there was a section that I highlighted on hatred. And
Mm-hmm.
this is in regard to the otherness.
All right.
The hatred embodies a complex set of fears about difference and otherness. It reveals what some people fear in themselves, their own quote differences.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Hatred forms around the unknown, the quote difference of others. And so it again, people do fear being different. And so when you talk about that populace again of providing people this place where they feel
Mm-hmm.
included
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they don't like immigrants
Right.
or certain immigrants, they like to be in the zeitgeist of that talking point or whatever's trending, and so they just kind of join in, and they don't, hateful or not, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
That that
yeah.
that that's powerful right there.
Yeah.
That's really hitting it home, driving it home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she provides kind of a which really aligns with what I feel like we're trying to step up and do right now. She provides a follow-up to this,
Mhm.
and it is and I've got it here, quoting from T.H. White's The One and Future King. I have not read it, but I think it's the Arthur and the Knights, or the Knights of
Mhm.
the Round Table. Parker Palmer celebrates the wisdom Merlin the magician offers when he declares, "The best thing for being sad is to learn something. That
Mm.
is the only thing that never fails. Learn why the world wags and what wags it. That is the
Mm.
only thing which the mind can never exhaust. Never alienate, never be tortured, never fear or distrust, and never dream of regretting. Learning is the thing for you."
Boom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom.
Waggity wag. Waggity
Yeah.
wag.
Education is about healing and wholeness, empowerment, liberation, transcendence, about renewing the vitality of life. It is about finding and claiming ourselves and our place in the world. Since our place in the world is constantly changing, we must be constantly learning to be fully present in the now. If we are
Yeah.
not fully engaged in the present, we get stuck in the past and our capacity to learn is diminished.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's like we have to imagine a way to be together differently because we are
Mhm.
such a diverse group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Um
that's what it says to me.
yeah.
That's what I'm
And
taking from it and other things. Yeah.
But so yeah, education, again, let's continue to chomp at the bit.
Chomp,
to
chomp.
to the education is almost like a practice in hope as well, I guess, is learn why the world wags and what wags it.
Waggity wag.
What?
I am saying that. Yeah, I think like, that describes just how I'm feeling right now of just
Yeah.
let me understand. I wanna
Yeah.
understand. I wanna, you know,
And this
I wanna
this
grow.
I also, and this is a whole topic I plan to bring to the table, is to zoom out the lens and really diversify your media, what you consume, and stop thinking about things just on a national level, but paying attention to things beyond our borders. And I know that sounds obvious, but starting to not just focus on what's going on directly us can actually really help to, again, learning about others and
Yeah.
learning about things outside of what's going on here, can actually kind of really pull you out as well, because you realize, like, there's things that are similar going on other places, there's things that are not, and we tend to, in this, we are hyper individualistic
Mhm.
here in the United States, but we're also hyper gosh, I don't know what the word is, but we only
We're
here in our
hyper.
news, yeah, we are, woo, yeah, uh,
So
true that. Yes,
see
yes,
that, see
ma'am.
that.
Our news cycle only focuses on here. We
Mhm.
don't talk about geopolitical topics regularly. It's not what our news cycle focuses on. A lot of us
Right.
don't know the presidents' names of or presidents in other countries.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
asking people, like, do you know, don't you just love Claudia Scheinbaum? And they're like, who is that? And I'm like,
Mexico's
um,
having a moment. They're doing its
uh,
thing. I love me.
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
president.
I'm like, yeah,
Be
if
my
you don't know about
president.
Claudia today, you're gonna know about Claudia. Um, just that continual. It's part of my quest for that hope is a discipline, and that education is a part of that as well. And
Mhm.
what you're explaining is, like you said, getting back to understanding why we as humans are functioning the way that we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love all that, and what we want to aim towards is to give some actionable items to people. One,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thank you for listening all the way through if you've gotten to this part of
Yes.
our
Yes.
our our spiels, and the homework and the action is start finding get connected in some way in your community, starting
Mm-hmm.
small, focusing I'm talking to the youth too, y'all. I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
the youth. Okay, I'm youthful, but I think this is going towards
We're
uh
dinks.
we're dinks. 20 and younger, all you young. You know what was so sweet? My cousin was telling me that when she picked up the kids, the one that I am the godmother of, her oldest,
Okay.
that she put on her podcast and she explained to them what we were doing. They're like, "Oh, okay." So
Yeah.
I hope that they continue to listen. And this is
Yeah.
my godson and my nieces and all my fam and all
Yeah.
young folks who are listening.
Yes.
Connect, get out there. The future is ours, is yours to take. And I went off on a tangent. I'm coming back. We are we're connecting, and we're being part of community.
My advice is to reflect on how you move in your own personal spaces. Do you say good morning to people when you get to work?
Yeah.
Um, do you how do you put in effort with your family? Or you only do things for people if they do them for you? Or are you operating in this like transactional type of relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Are you working really hard to only operate in certain friend groups at one time, trying to keep everything separate? How are we showing up in our
Right.
own lives? And then yeah, maybe that's why I say sometimes maybe joining a club might be a lot because that's rooted in just being social. So that's why also I feel like offering like maybe think about an act of service or some kind of volunteer where you're doing something. Oh, well, you don't have to talk to them the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You show up and you're helping out with something that can be rooted in a task but you're also engaging and relying, you know, interdependence with individuals that are different than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
So let's
All
go from
right.
the I to the we.
That's
We're
right.
we're helping each other out. We need to. It's a survival. I think there's a stat like when you are connected with other people, you, you do live longer. Like
Mhm.
people who are
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
isolated.
Yes. We're just
We're,
now learning the benefits of intergenerational living, not maybe living away from all your family. There are benefits to being with your peeps.
yeah, being
Yeah.
with the peep. Well, I
All
think
right,
that that's a great
Dahlia.
place to wrap up. We had a great
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Um, don't forget
Don't
to
forget to like,
yeah,
share, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
and turn on notifications. And turn on notifications. And then
Oh, yeah.
end with John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Show up. Show up. All
All
right.
right.
It's been real.
Love, peace, and chicken grease.
See
Later.
ya.